This is my first ever tutorial video, and I'm so excited to be doing this 5-part video series of my character design process. There's a crap ton of thought and designing that goes into one of my character designs. So in this video series, I will be walking y'all through how exactly I go about designing a character and what exactly is my thought process and everything going on inside my brain while I'm designing the character. So this is the first video in my character design process series where today I'll be going through how I start designing a character, and then the second video in my series I'll be going over how I create iterations and explore different avenues of a character design, and then the third video I go through how I finalize a character design, with the fourth video showing y'all how I make a model sheet and callouts so that a 3D artist could use for in-game implementation, and then with my last final video kicking off how I go about laying out my character design to present in my portfolio. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a video in this character design process series. If you are new to this channel, hi, I'm Janelle, and I am a concept artist. I worked on a number of small indie games, as well as some client work designing characters. Just so y'all know, this is my method that I use. So if you find that my process doesn't work for you, don't come blaming me for your bad character designs, okay? Before I get into any drawing, I like to have a basic, descriptive gist of what kind of character I will be creating. When I work with clients, it's a little bit easier because I'm giving references and sometimes a character description. But for personal projects like this, it's kind of just up in the air with whatever I want to make. But it's important to always have a direction when you are starting a new character design, because otherwise you're going to be stuck in a loop of forever not knowing where you want the design to go. And believe me, you do not want a situation like that. But more on that later. Yeah, so before I start drawing anything, I have a quick short description where you see that I've written fantasy character. And then below that I go into a little bit more detail of I want this character to be a female unicorn warrior. Why unicorns? Because unicorns are my favorite animal and because they are magically awesome. Which is also why I want her to be wielding a magical weapon, so that she can be the ultimate magical warrior. Now you see this sketch right next to my brief description of the character. And this is what I call the Firstest, Worstest sketch. And there are two very important reasons as to why I make this Firstest, Worstest sketch. The first being it's a placeholder. When I'm collecting references and inspiration, my brain is in a jumble with so many ideas and directions I can take this character. So having a sketch is kind of like this, hey, I know I want to go in this direction, but I also know that this sketch is crap. And we have a crap ton to do before I am a happy camper with this design. And it's important to me to kind of have an idea of what this character could become, so this sketch is just a placeholder for that. The second reason for me making this Firstest, Worstest sketch is that this sketch is a style guide. I need some sort of art direction of what kind of style I want to draw my character in while I'm designing this character. And it's important to establish this early on because the art style determines a lot of the limitations in your character design. I will get into more style limitations in the next videos in this series. But for now, keep in mind that establishing an art style first is very important. And since I'm not working with a team with an already established art direction, this Firstest, Worstest sketch is my art direction. Now this is where we get into the very start of character designing. The silhouettes. Honestly, the first silhouettes that I draw are always just trash. But we still love them because in order to find that gem, you have to dig through a pile of poo. At the early stage of character development, there are so many different ways you can start getting the ball rolling of starting your character design. For an example, for a past project I did, I used these colored thumbnails to design my intergalactic officer. And I've also done quick sketches like these for a different project. So it's really up to you on how you want to go about starting the initial phase of your character design. You want to start the process in a way that you can quickly go through ideas just to figure out what exactly you want to do with your character. So a lot of artists like myself like to start with silhouettes, like what you see me doing here. And it's actually pretty liberating just to focus on the silhouette of the character. You don't have to worry too much about the little details that are inside of the character design. And you are more focusing on the overall big picture of how the character will read from far away. And you can tell a lot about character just from the silhouette. And if there are multiple characters that you are designing, it's actually probably preferred to do a silhouette just so that you can have a side-by-side and make sure you can tell the difference between each of the characters. And also having a unique silhouette makes it easier for other people to look at it from a glance and to tell that it's a different character compared to the other characters. But for this particular character design, I'm not worrying about a character lineup because I'm only making one character, so I can pretty much instead just focus on making a super hot fire character. Honestly, at this stage, I still have no idea of where I want this character design to go. So these silhouettes are helping me figure out some possible ideas and directions that I want to take this character. The only thing in common with each silhouette is the fact that 1, they're all female, 2, she's a unicorn, so she's got a horn on her head, and 3, a magical weapon of some sort. But there are a lot of questions that I think about while I am drawing these silhouettes. Questions like, what kind of magical weapon should she wield? A sword, a polearm? And what kind of warrior do I want her to be? Will she be sophisticated or more barbarian? How will people know that she is magical and that she wields the magical weapons? And in between each sketch, I'm thinking of a new possible direction I can take the next silhouette. So each sketch takes about 3 to 5 minutes to complete, but in between each sketch a little bit of time passes just because I'm looking at inspiration and trying to find more new ideas. So this whole process took about an hour and a half for these 10 silhouettes. And at this point, there are so many directions I could take this character design based off of all these different silhouettes. And the hardest thing is choosing which one to take and run with, because each of them could turn out so cool. Well, except for this one. This one kind of sucks. So I turned off my iPad and left my silhouettes alone so that my brain can process what I want to do moving forward with this design. Typically after the first set of sketches, when I'm designing a character or designing something, I like to sleep on it. I found that when I sleep well and return the next day, my subconscious has already solved some of those problems that I was stuck on or trying to figure out. So if any of y'all are ever stuck on a problem, just get some good sleep and then brain magic happens. And then you wake up feeling like a genius. It's great. From my amazing sleep, I woke up with 2 solved answers to my first questions when I was drawing the silhouettes. The first, what type of weapon will she be wielding? I decided a sword. And the second, how would I indicate that my character is magical and wielding a magical weapon? Out of the 10 silhouettes, these 2 stuck out the most to me to being the most interesting. So with these 2 silhouettes, I set off to make another set of silhouettes. I found that I was more favorable to the first rather than the second, and that was just because the second, she looks more dainty, whereas the first, she is more fierce and powerful and gung-ho, and more looking like the vibe from my Firstest, Worstest sketch from the beginning. So with this next group of silhouettes, I was exploring different sword shapes and some possible clothing styles to help me figure out what kind of warrior I want her to be. As I said before, you can share a lot of information from a silhouette, which is why I took the time to make another group of these bad boys, because it's fast and I can explore a lot of different ideas. Maybe she has some flowy attire, and so that kind of indicates that she's carefree. Or maybe some attire that is more blocky, so she seems more sturdy and reliable. That's the great thing about silhouettes. You can try whatever you want. Once I finished these 5 silhouettes, there was a problem I was trying to figure out with the magical sword. The major problem being, how in the world is she gonna put her big magical sword into a sheath of some kind? Like, how would she be able to go to bed and not worry about her big magical sword making her uncomfy? And that's when I decided her magical sword retracts into magical armor, which means that I now have 2 character designs to do for the price of 1, because she has 2 modes, normie mode and warrior mode. To move forward in the next step of my design process, I make another crappy sketch, like my Firstest, Worstest sketch, just to reiterate this concept of having 2 different modes with this normie mode and warrior mode. And while I'm doing the sketch, I'm not really focusing on making it perfect. Like, it's just a sketch just to get like my basic idea down, and I'm not focusing on like the ultimate perfect design, and I'm still in that exploring phase. So all the bells and whistles that I add to these sketches are just like placeholders, and I know that they're not going to be permanent, and it's all probably going to change. Because you saw while I'm doing this, I literally took one of the silhouettes and was like, hey, this could be cool, let's just noodle around a little bit and see where it can go and explore this sword retraction armor idea. Honestly, these sketches aren't that great, but we still have a long way to go, so I'm not really worried about it, because these sketches are just the jumping off point to moving on to my next step in my character design process, where I'll be creating iterations of this character design. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this video series. Thank you so much for watching my first ever tutorial video series. Character design is a huge passion of mine, and I feel so grateful to be able to share this process with y'all. So if you enjoyed this first video, please let me know by either commenting down below or liking this video. And also make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on my next upload in this series. I'm hoping to release part 2 next week, so keep an eye out for that. Let me know down below if you have any questions about starting a new character design, and otherwise I will see you in the next video. Meow.